Welcome back with Real Facts Matter. I'm Aton, this is Mookie, and today we're going to talk about progressive liberalism and communism. We're going to draw the similarities between the two, and we're going to really look at how they're basically the same ideology. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is, well, you already know my name, it's Aton, and I am 39. I'm an Israeli Canadian. I immigrated to Canada from Israel at the age of 5. I immigrated to the US at 15. I immigrated back to Canada at 23. I went to college, lived in a lot of different places, in a lot of different cities. And, I share a perspective where I can safely say that, I don't have a small world view. I'm someone that's seen and communicated with lots of people, and anyone that knows me would be able to attest to that, that I'm not, I may have been shy when I was really young, but by the time I had moved to my 4th high school, I had already learned how to kind of break away from it. So let's talk about progressive liberalism and communism, and start with the understanding that they are Marxist ideologies that are devoid of religion. That is to say that religion can never really be an influence on any decision that they make. And they make decisions based on what's best for a collective as opposed to what's best for an individual. The problem with that is that you have individuals deciding what's best for a collective. And that's always the system it becomes, because a democratic rule can never be achieved in the way that the majority has the ultimate say, because a majority can always choose the option of suicide if it's allowed to do that. And that's really how governments think, and that's what it would always kind of pivot towards. That's why you even see it in the liberal ideology that tries to make Trump out to be some kind of Nazi fascist. They make parallels to Hitler, when really we've seen his record. And I think the only people that would really be afraid of him is the people who sign those, journalist paychecks. I think those are the only people that are really worried that Trump is going to get into office, right? It's like, yeah, obviously the media establishment is going to be worried because, we're not blind to what they've been doing, right? So that I find a bit hypocritical, and I find it even more hypocritical when I hear like Harvard graduates talking about how it isn't important that Claudine Gay was caught plagiarizing basically every piece of her academia, right? Every paper she submitted basically has like a day worth of work on it that she didn't need to do, because you're only allowed to use so many quotes in a paper, right? Like you can't just like as soon as you take that paragraph out, that should alter her grade right there, right? Like I'm pretty sure I remember that's how that works. I may not have gone to Harvard, but I do remember that's how that works. So, when the highest institution in the world, because that's what I would consider Harvard, right? I don't know, maybe Harvard doesn't want to be considered that. Maybe it's okay just being like number 50 or 100 or wherever it would fall to, if it suddenly like held on to this rule and thought that this somehow reflected what higher education is supposed to be about. So, I find it disgraceful that people would, just try to brush the situation off because certain people brought it up, and those people also have an agenda. That you're caught red-handed in that way, it definitely means that like those people were right in some way, and that like definitely more investigation is warranted, and like we need to see like what the ultimate agenda really is, because it feels like it's just shifting power from one group of rich people to another group of rich people, and then those rich people assign people who they deem worthy of holding a certain office, and we know that those people share an ideology that is dangerous, right? So that is the danger of taking even a gamble on that, right? It's like, what you don't understand is that there's kind of no going back once you go with a Marxist ideology, right? Like, you're all trapped at that point, because any form of dissent can ultimately be a threat to the ideology itself. And that always becomes, even in the way that they reject everything, even in the way that, as soon as you bring something up, you're either racist, or you're a homophobe, or you're a narcissist, right? They try to just deflect and just misdirect and just change the subject, right? And try to bring something else up. And I don't know if this is like literally something they're taught, or something that just naturally comes from, literally believing in that kind of ideology, where you become so closed-minded that you're no longer willing to even accept someone else's point of view, right? Like, I don't understand how they would be able to determine our points of view are toxic, when, like, even the people, my sister is big into this movement, and I know even she would say that I act out of a place of love. I'm not like a violent person, not like from the environment that I've grown up in, and not compared to my peers even remotely, that I would have been a voice of reason in most conflicts, if not all conflicts, right? Or like possible conflicts. I'm always the person that would like be trying to tone things down, and, trying to find other things to do other than bad things to do. Anyways, we get back to, Marxism, progressive liberalism. We get to the whole knowledge of, like, there's like a shield almost these people are taught to create for themselves, where it goes to that same thing I was talking about before, where they just kind of reject an idea. They just cannot accept that, like, any even small idea that they might acquiesce to is a threat to basically, the whole entity itself. It's almost like any bit that would reverse something without them reversing it themselves would corrupt the whole model, because it would basically force them to admit that they don't have the divine morality that God has. That's the only way that I can conceive this somehow, working in a mind, right? And what I don't understand is how they've made that supposition, and how they've, there have to be quite a few kids that are on the fence about this, right? When they say it's like half the population, let's hope maybe 10-15% are genuinely just there, at a popularity, and they actually know it's better, and when the time comes they wouldn't act, right? Because if it's 50-50, that's really dangerous and scary, right? Because when it's like, I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, but when they become a total mass, when you allow a form of Marxism to take over, there really is no turning back without, like, an incredible type of civil war. It's why Russia has never managed to achieve it. China's never managed to achieve it, because the cost is immeasurable, right? You're talking about taking on a military when you don't even have rudimentary arms, right? When you're lucky to even have handguns, because of the type of oversight that's in those countries. So, I don't understand how people can't see the slope that it becomes, and how quickly it would become that, as soon as the ideology, basically said, well, we said one thing, we'll do another, right? Because they've already proven that they're willing to do that, right? And they're already willing to admit that they can make mistakes, and that they will make mistakes, but that they'll always act in a position that we're supposed to assume is always going to be superiorly moral to, everyone else, to God, right? To God. And it scares me, because communism is kind of saying the same thing. Communism is saying we act for the greater good, right? Nazi Germany, we act for the greater good, right? I'm pretty sure all of these crazy, ideologies where even a hint of genocide is whiffed out. They all said, we are doing this for the greater good. There's really no other way to sell it, right? How else can you sell it? When you really get to the critical academics, right? So that's the morality I'm kind of talking about. It's like you have the hubris to defy God and challenge him with this concept, and we've already had it. It was called communism. The Germans had it. It was called being a Nazi. And like, no matter, democracy is the only position that advocates from a place of fairness, justice, equality for all. How can we like go against that when the other option is already advocating that we segregate ourselves into racial co-groups, right? And undo like hundreds of years of integration, right? Just because they have some cocked up idea of like communism 2.0. That's the way that I view it. All right. So I guess that's it for today. I'll tell you guys a lot more about myself. I had the sweetest rabbi beard very recently, and I cut it off because it was time. But it will grow back one day, and for everyone, I think we'll put it up even, and just so everyone knows I can take a joke. And I just want you to know, my response to all of you is fractals, and we'll see you later.